Hi friends, welcome back to SPK English Academy. In today's class, we will discuss one of the most important literary critics of English language and English literature. So that is Samuel Taylor Coleridge. He gave his own contribution to English literary theory. He was the contemporary of William Wordsworth and a close friend of William Wordsworth. He gave his opinion about Wordsworth's poetry and Biographia Literaria, especially his great achievement or contribution to literary theory is his concept of imagination and fancy, primary imagination and secondary imagination. So these are very important contribution to English literary theory by Samuel Taylor. Another one, praise, which is coined by S.T. Coleridge or Samuel Taylor Coleridge, is that is willing suspension of disbelief. So we will discuss all these points in detail in this video. Samuel Taylor Coleridge was born in 1772 and died in 1834. He is one of the greatest of poets, critics that England has ever produced. He was genius, and when he was inspired, he could create works of highest order, but he was incapable of sustained and persistent labor. Coleridge was a man of voracious reading and writer's views and attitudes are consciously or unconsciously molded and formed by all that he reads. He was greatly influenced by Wordsworth, Hartley, and his associative psychology and German transcendental and idealistic philosophy of Lessing, Kant, Hegel, Schilling, and Schiller. The most part of his criticism is included in his great literary work that is Biographia Literaria and his lectures on Shakespeare and other poets. Mainly his all critical work includes in that Biographia Literaria and his lectures on Shakespeare and other poets. See, what is about the Biographia Literaria or what did S.T. Coleridge say in his critical work that is Biographia Literaria? See, lectures on Shakespeare is mainly devoted to practical criticism and the Biographia Literaria which was published in 1817 is work on literary aesthetics of literary theory. Biographia Literaria is a values of great work, but it too suffers from the usual faults of Coleridge. It is to be record of the poet's literary upbringing, but there is little consecutive narrative. There is too much of philosophizing and too many side issues and digressions. So, what is the views and definition of poetry according to Yes, according to S.T. Coleridge. See, Coleridge emphasizes the difference between the prose and poetry. The difference between prose poem and a prose composition cannot lie in the medium, for each employ the same medium and also same words. It must therefore consist in a different combination of them. A poem must have an organic unity in the sense that our is in the whole develops cumulatively out of the appreciation of the parts. See, poetry is in the true sense of the true word. There is perfect unity of form and content. The notion of such organic unity runs through all Coleridge's pronouncements on poetry. See, rhyme and mere are not pleasures superadded. Nothing that is superadded merely stuck on for ornament or decoration can really please in a poem. Every one of its characteristic must grow out of its whole nature and be an integral part of it. She says, rhyme and meter are integral to the poem, an essential part of it, because the pleasure of poetry is a special kind of pleasure which results from the parts and the whole. See, according to St. Coleridge, so rhyme and meter are integral part of poem to get pleasure by reading those poems. See, that what does that Wordsworth say about his poetry and theory and diction? See, Wordsworth says here Wordsworth and Coleridge came together early in life, and out of their mutual discussion arose the various theories which Wordsworth embodied in his preface to the lyrical ballads, and which he tried to put into practice in his poems. Coleridge claimed credit for these theories and said, Hop the child of his brain. But later on, his views went on to change. He did not agree with Wordsworth's theories and so criticized them in his critical work Biographia Literaria. See, S.T. Coleridge criticized the poem of his close friend Wordsworth in his literary works, that is Biographia Literaria. So you have to keep in your mind that Wordsworth and Coleridge have controversy over the use of rhyme in the poetry. See, in his preface, Wordsworth made three important statements, all of which have been objects of Coleridge's censure. He chose low and rustic life, and rustic language too is adopted. See, the language and diction of poetry is a selection of the real language of man. The language of these men should be imitated, and that between the language of prose and that of metrical composition, there neither is nor can be any essential difference. Here, that Coleridge said that there is no difference in the use of the language of poetry and also prose. See, what about the Coleridge's views about Wordsworth's poetry? See, regarding to the choice of rustic character and life, Coleridge points out that Wordsworth's all characters are not chosen from low or rustic life. The characters like Ruth and Michael are not low or rustic. The usual acceptance of these words, see, their language and sentiments do not necessarily arise from their abode or occupation. In the opinion of Coleridge, a man will not be benefited from a life in rural solitudes. Useless, he has natural sensibility and suitable education. In the absence of these two factors, in rural conditions, the mind hardens and a man grows selfish, sensual, gross, and hard hearted. See, Coleridge's views, what he says next, Coleridge said that the best part of man's language does not result merely from communication with nature, but from education. from the minds dwelling on noble thoughts and ideals of the masterminds of humanity. See, Coleridge said here, what is said, the best part of man's language does not result merely from the communication with nature, but it results from education. It results from the minds dwelling on noble thoughts, and it results from ideas of the masterminds of humanity. So this is, he says. See, Aldrich points out that every man's language varies according to the context of his knowledge, the activity of his faculties, and the depth or quickness of his feelings. Here, Coleridge says that, see, every man's language varies, differs, differentiate according to the context of his knowledge. So, according to the context of his knowledge, the activity of his faculties, and the depth or quickness of his feelings. Every man's language has first its individual peculiarities. Every language or every individual's language has its own peculiarities and properties common to the class to which he belongs. The next, the words and praise of universal use. No two men of the same class or different classes speak alike. What he says, no two men of the same classes or different classes cannot speak alike, although both use words and phrases. Their language is different in the use of words and phrases. Coleridge said that there ought to be an essential difference between the language of the prose and poetry. According to Coleridge, there is a difference between the use of prose and poetry, between the use of the language of prose and poetry. He states that the language of poetry is entirely different from that of prose language. See, language is both a matter of words and arrangement of those words. He says that Coleridge, but in both poetry and prose, language is both a matter of words. Language is expressed in words only, and language is arrangement of those words. But there is a difference in the use of prose and use of poetry's language. Now, the words both in prose and poetry may be the same, the words which you use in English language, in the poetry or in the prose are same. No difference in the use of the words. Same words are used in poetry and the same words are used in prose, but their arrangement is different. But only thing is different here. No words, no phrases. Both prose and poetry as poetry or is matter of words and arrangement of words. But the difference is there in the arrangement of the words, words in prose and arrangement of the words in poetry. So that's important. See, meter is not a mere superficial decoration, an essential organic part of a poem. Hence, there is bound to be an essential difference between the language, that is, the arrangement of words, of poetry, and prose. See, Wordsworth gave one great praise to English literary theory. He coined one praise, that is willing suspension of disbelief. So this is the praise coined by Wordsworth to English literary theory or criticism. So you have to remember, the question is asked on this praise. Who coined the following praise, willing suspension of disbelief? Coleridge, S.T. Coleridge. What is the meaning of this willing suspension of disbelief according to Coleridge? See, this phrase is used to indicate the nature of poetic dramatic illusion. Although, though the neoclassical era, the question of dramatic illusion and credibility had excised the mind of critics, and the observance of the unities was considered essential, for it was said their violation puts to severe strain on the credibility of the audience, and thus dramatic illusion is violated. So this is the willing suspension of disbelief according to Coleridge. So it was Coleridge who said the last word on the subject and finally put the controversy at rest. See, the most important contribution of St. Coleridge's to English language or literary theory, so that is imagination and fancy. These two were the concept presented or created by Coleridge in his theory of literature criticism. So that is Biographia Literaria work. See, what does that Coleridge say about fancy and imagination? He is the first person who differentiated imagination and fancy. See, Coleridge built his theory on the basic distinction between fancy and imagination. See, he first refers to this significant distinction in chapter 14 of his Biographia Literaria. You have to keep in your mind in which chapter did Coleridge mention or say about his concept imagination and fancy in Biographia Literaria means. So, this imagination and fancy concepts are refers to the significant distinction in the chapter 4 of the Biographia Literaria. See, what does fancy mean? Fancy mean what? Imagination and fancy are activities of two different kinds. But imagination, the activity of the imagination is different, the activity of fancy is also different. They are used in the same sense before Coleridge. So, before that, Coleridge differentiated between the imagination and fancy. These two concepts, imagination and fancy, were used in the same sense. There was no difference before that Coleridge. So he ultimately used the term fancy for the 18th century view of imagination, which was essentially mechanical and determined by the law of association. See, imagination on this view does not modify, much less does it transform the materials that it deals with, but merely reproduces them. In Kantian term, we should call it the reproductive imagination. So, imagination means it is the creative work, creative activity. You have to create new thing. But fancy is it is already existed. So fancy has no creative power of its own to reproduce at all, but it deals with fixities and definities and only combines what it pursues into beautiful shapes. But like the imagination, it does not fuse and unify. Here, that Coleridge says that the concept imagination has no creative power at all. See, so what he says then that fancy deals with only fixities which are already existed and definities, and the function of fancy is combine what is pursues into beautiful shapes, but like the imagination it does not fuse and unify. So that fancy does not fuse, does not mix or unify any other things. So this refers to only fixities and definities. On the other side, he says the difference between fancy and imagination is as difference between the material mixture and the chemical compound. In a mechanical, a number of ingredients are brought together. He says here, he clearly differentiated between imagination and fancy. Here, fancy refers to the mixture, material mixture. So that is mechanical number of ingredients brought together. But that Imagination is refers to chemical compound. So when we add or mix one or two or three chemicals, so it cannot be separated. Where it is impossible to separate the added chemicals to that. But if you so this is imagination power, but that fancy is an example for mechanical number of ingredients. For example, you take any vehicle, so with the help of mechanical number of ingredients we have to create another one new thing, but we can separate all those number of ingredients mechanically. If we take any vehicle, we can uh, divide or get all those parts in original form, but imagination is not like that. Imagination is a chemical compound. Once we mix the chemicals, we cannot separate them. We cannot get the original form of those. So here, chemical compound is nothing but imagination, and a mechanical number of ingredients are brought together is nothing but fixities or fancy. So they are mixed up, but they do not lose their individual property. They still exist as separate identities. Just I told you, if you take an example of any vehicle, so mechanically a number of ingredients are brought together, but we can separate them. And also when we separate those ingredient parts of mechanical, so we will get them their original form. But if you go to that imagination, it is like a chemical compound. When we mix more than one chemicals, so we cannot separate them here. See, on the other hand, in a chemical compound, the different ingredients combine to form something new. So, on the other hand, in a chemical compound, the different ingredients combine to form new things, something new. So, when we add one chemical to other, so by adding the chemical compound, we have to create the different ingredients and the new things there. See, the different ingredients no longer exist as separate identities when we add one chemical to other. So that ingredients no longer exist as separate identities. It is mixed. By mixing or by fusing those different chemicals, we have to make another one new chemical. So that is imagination. They lose their respective properties and fuse together to create something new and entirely different one. When we add those chemicals, by adding one more than one chemicals, we have to create another one new things or new chemical. But those mixed or fused chemicals cannot be separated. We do not get the original form of those chemicals. So that's why it is a good example. It is a good example for imagination. So mechanical number of ingredients are brought together to create the new one. Those mechanical number of ingredients are separated. When we separate those mechanical number of ingredients, they are available us. So we find them in their original form. Compound is an act of creation, while a mixture is merely bringing together of a number of separate elements. See, for Coleridge, fancy is the drapery of poetic genius, but imagination is its very soul, which forms all into one graceful and intelligent whole. See, on the other hand, in a chemical compound, the different ingredients combine to form new thing. Different ingredients no longer exist. See, imagination. It says about imagination. The previous slides we discussed both imagination and fancy. Again, we see what is imagination. See, imagination has the creative and reproductive power. But fancy has no any creative power or reproductive power. According to Coleridge, imagination can be divided into categories as primary imagination and secondary imagination. Primary imagination. What does the primary imagination say? Primary imagination is merely the power of receiving impressions of the external world through the senses. See, primary imagination is merely the power of receiving impressions of the external world through the senses. So it is an involuntary act of the mind. See, primary imagination is an involuntary act of the mind. The human mind receives impressions and sensations from the world unconsciously and individually. See, it is the living power and prime agent of all human perceptions, a repetition in the finite mind of the eternal act of creation in the finite I am. It is universal, it is processed by all. This primary imagination is processed by all. So now we go to secondary imagination. How does that secondary imagination differ from that of the primary imagination according to Coleridge's discussion? See, on the other hand, the secondary imagination is the peculiar and distinctive attribute of the artist. See, it is secondary imagination which makes artistic creation possible. So, with the help of the secondary imagination, the artist creates his artistic creation only. It is more active and conscious in its working. When it is working, that secondary imagination is more active and conscious. Even if you compare this to that of primary imagination. See, secondary imagination works upon what is pursued by the primary imagination. Its raw material is the sensations, impressions applied to it by the primary imagination. See, by an effort of the will and the intellect, the secondary imagination selects and orders the raw material and reshape and remodels it into objects of beauty. So that is the function of secondary imagination. See, it is a shaping and modifying power. See that secondary imagination has the shaping and modifying power which reshapes, recreates objects of the external world and steeps them with a glory and dream that never was on sea and land. It is an active agent which dissolves, diffuses, and diffuses, dissipates in order to create. So this question was asked in the previous nut and cassette questions also. Be careful about it. Uh, which is the function of that, this, it is an active agent which dissolves. Which imagination, either a primary imagination or only imagination or secondary imagination or fancy, does this work? It is an active agent. See, secondary imagination is an active agent, so it dissolves, diffuses. Secondary imagination dissolve, diffuses, dissipates. Why does it do all these three functions? That secondary imagination does all these three functions to create, in order to create new one. See, by telling all this, so now I am ending this video. So I think you will watch this video and understand what is the difference between primary and secondary imagination, and also fancy and imagination, and what about that biographia literaria, and who coined the term that is willing suspension belief. So these are very important points you have to keep in your mind to get success in your examination. You have subscribed to my channel already. If you haven't subscribed, you do subscribe. The next time I will not share this video to your WhatsApp. It is a great problem to me. So if you become subscriber of my channel, you will get the video as soon as upload it on the YouTube. Thank you for watching this video.